Welcome to Beyond Hormones, the Business of Wellness, the podcast for hormone and functional medicine providers who want a thriving, predictably profitable practice and maybe a little less stress along the way. Hi, I'm your host, Jody Lane, and I've worked with lots of clinics in marketing, sales, and business development, and I have seen what works and what doesn't. And here's what I believe. Hormone and wellness care should be available to everyone who wants it. And while providers know the medicine, many struggle with the business side of their cash practice. And that's where I come in. See, this podcast is here to share real strategies, real stories, things you can implement in your practice right away. So I am so glad you're here. Come on, let's go. Welcome back to Beyond Hormones, the Business of Wellness. I'm Jody, and if you're a practitioner in the hormone, functional medicine, or integrative wellness space, you're going to want to bookmark this episode and probably share it with every clinician you know. Today, I am lucky enough to sit down with Alenka Kyslik, who is the founder of Saha Collective. And honestly, the first time I came across her work on social media, I thought to myself, where has this been all this time? See, Alenka is not a clinician, but she is a software builder with a background in video games and airline technology who went on a year-long personal health journey. She could not find the right practitioners at the right time, so she decided to fix it by building a matchmaking platform that connects patients with the right wellness providers based on way more than just location and specialty. We're talking about a system that considers where someone is in their healing journey, what modalities they're open to, shared lived experiences, and it takes all the admin, the marketing, the booking, the SEO completely off your plate. So if you have ever struggled to find the right patients or felt like your ideal clients just can't seem to find you, or you feel like you're spending more time on your calendar than you are with actual patients, this conversation is for you. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. Okay. Welcome everyone back to another episode of Beyond Hormones, the Business of Wellness. I am very excited to have my next guest on because she's doing something that is so unique in this space and all wellness clinicians need to hear about it. So I'm just going to introduce Alenka and I'm going to have her explain a little bit about who she is and of course what Saha is.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Jody. I really appreciate it. So my name is Alenka. I'm the founder of Saha Collective. It came from a journey of not being able to find answers in conventional medicine, and my background is in software. And I realized I can do something to help because from both the clinician side and from the client side, it's often very hard to find the right fit at the right time in whatever you're going through. And so I built a matchmaking system that basically looks at who the client is as a whole person, as well as where they're at, right? It's very different when we're dealing with acute symptoms versus like we know the root cause and then the further on, we know what to do, but we just, not in a place where we're ready to do it, or we need someone to handhold us through the process and keep us accountable.
Right.
And practitioners often fall into various buckets. And if they're not matched with the right client, then it doesn't feel good on either side, right? You're not able to help in the way you want, and the client's not getting what they need. And so our goal is to really make those connections as beneficial as possible to both sides and really support the providers in a way that they can focus on being there with in session and just taking care of the people that they want to take care of. And we take care of the admin and all of the rest of it.
Absolutely amazing, especially since one of the biggest hurdles that most clinicians go through is marketing. How do they create their messaging? How do they find the right people? And you're kind of removing all of that. So I have a ton of questions to ask you, but
Okay.
before we do that, maybe you can just, so that everyone's clear in their mind, maybe just like walk us through what the prospective patient's journey would be once they logged in, like how would it work?
Yeah. So the patient can do two different things. They can either go into our directory and they can search based on whatever filters that we have set up, right? And these grow as the database of providers grow. So anything from certain symptoms they can search by, or locations, virtual, in office, etc. And then it will give a search result. If you ever use ZocDoc, where you get the search results with like the pictures and the name and the types of care, and then it'll have embedded the appointment availability right there, and you can book right there. You can also go and there's going to be provider profile pages, and you
Hmm.
can book from there. So that's one way of doing it. And then we have our matchmaking, and our matchmaking is approximately a 2-minute survey that the client fills out. And then it gives them a team of providers to choose from. The goal of this is really to give back agency, right? Because oftentimes clients are just at their wits' end. They've tried everything, they don't know what to do. And one thing might not be the right thing, but having some options, not too many options, is a really good way to start and say, like, oh, I didn't know, as an example, that Pilates can help with back pain. Like a lot of people don't know that, right? Or I learned this morning that chiropractic can help with TMJ, right? I didn't know that.
Neither did I.
Right?
That's cool.
Like we don't
Yeah.
know what we don't know, and it's
Right.
not fair to put that onus on the client to find the right answers. And then the clinicians or the practitioners are often so deep in what they do, they have a really hard time first of all explaining it. And so we work with you to build out your profile, explaining it in a way that the average person understands, right?
Yeah.
That the average person can absorb and be like, oh yes, this is me, right? Because if you walk through in what you're used to in your everyday language, the average person doesn't know what that means or how that impacts them. And therefore, they're not going to book with you because they don't get it, right? We need to transition from these are the exact words that your clients are using, and this is how they're explaining what they're going through. We put that in your language, explaining how you serve. And then that then resonates with the clients in a way that they're more likely to book, right? We can't guarantee, but we'll do our best through every step of the way. And this is where my marketing background comes in, my background in software and kind of optimizing systems, right? Because every potential extra step we're asking of someone is a place where they could stop the flow of
Right.
booking or whatever it is. So how can we optimize that and simplify it?
Listening to you from a marketing perspective, like my marketing hat on, I'm hearing SEO, I'm hearing keywords, I'm hearing the things that you're taught to do, only instead of doing it on this massive platform like Google, you're
Yeah.
doing it in a micro targeted platform where the patient is the one that's really initiating the search, and you're supporting the practitioner to use the right terminology, the right keywords, the right pain points, or whatever it is that's in that checklist that are
Yeah.
really connecting them a lot faster and a lot better. Does that sound about
Yeah.
right?
That sounds about right. I think what's interesting to me is when you get into this, like, if you are pregnant, it's pretty straightforward what you do. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
not to say that
Yeah.
there aren't exceptions, but like we have a system in place and there are things
Right.
that you do, right? But when you're going through something that doesn't fall into the traditional sphere, if you will, there you can't Google it, you can't use AI to figure out what it is because you probably don't have the right words to explain it. And it might take a couple of practitioners to get you to the place that you want to be in, right? It
Yeah.
might not just be one. And I think it becomes very hard. So like we are doing the SEO pieces, we are building in the ability to come up in search results in AI. We are doing like retargeting and advertising in different ways that like we in the traditional marketing sense, the average practitioner isn't going to know how or what to do with that. We are building it. Like, and this is part of the
Absolutely.
goal of, hey, you have your genius zone. You have your zone of genius where you do best, and this is why you are here to serve the world. Let us take the rest of what it takes to build your business off of you, and so that you can be there and be present and serve and not be, oh my gosh, I don't know why my booking system isn't working today. And
Right.
literally had this conversation with someone. They're like, yeah, my Calendly's not working. And I'm like, we can spend 5 minutes, figure it out. She's like, no, I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'm like, you could have lost
Oh,
bookings from today to tomorrow. Like, this is important, right? So,
absolutely.
yeah.
So, obviously this didn't just come to you in a dream. Something happened, and I follow you on social media, so I kind of know this story. But for the listeners, can you share, like, what was that moment in time where you said to yourself, the world needs this, and I'm going to be the one to build it?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. A story is never one moment, but there is a moment, and I'll give it a little preamble. So, tore my ankles to shreds. I went through burnout a couple times, realized it was related. That's a whole nother conversation. But the point being is it took me years, and I think I tried over 50 different types of treatment and modalities
Oh my
to get
goodness.
to a place. Yes, it was wild. And I'm still like, I have a red light under my desk. Like I do a lot. I've changed my diet, my caffeine intake. I don't really drink alcohol anymore. Like I've cut a lot of things. But what was funny, this is just, a little lightheartedness. I went through a breakup of all things. And I had a friend hand me a journal and she said, you were going to write 3 pages in this a day. I'm rebellious and wrote 2.
At least you followed the majority of the advice.
Follow the like spirit of the advice.
Yeah.
But it came to me as like, well, what do I want in life? And I was like, I want to help the people who've helped me. Like that was truly where I was like, I know that I can make a difference and I can help people. And that was the moment where it was, as I was writing, I was like, oh, you know what? This is something I can do.
Yeah. And your
Yeah.
background is, how did that contribute to what you're building?
Yeah. So my background's a little wild. So I come from primarily video games and putting Wi-Fi on airplanes in the software space. From both a marketing and product just means like building so I'm the nucleus of the cell, if you will. And like, so I'm the one saying, oh yeah, we should do this, or like taking in the data and then outputting the intent, like how we should approach things, from all angles. So I kind of compute the data and then output it in terms of how we're deciding to build, if that
So
makes
you're a perfect nerd, is what I'm hearing. Like you got the right nerdy skills and
sense.
life experience. You mix those together and you created this incredible thing. So let's move this conversation over to where maybe the practitioners are starting to think about how it affects them. So
Yeah.
especially in the hormone and functional medicine space, which is where most of our dialogue lands in this podcast.
Yeah.
And that's a very trustworthy type of clinic.
Yeah.
You need to have like a significant amount of trust and faith in your clinician to give over that vulnerability. What would you say to a practitioner who's a little bit skeptical or concerned about a matchmaking algorithm connecting the right dots?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is it doesn't cost anything to sign up. So go through the process. And I say that to say is when you go through the process, it starts to click. Every single practitioner that I've walked through and shown, okay, it's not rocket science. And I jokingly say this because I live in an area that is where rockets are built. So I'm surrounded by it. But it's things like symptoms, where you're at in your healing journey, and what you're comfortable with. That's the baseline. I say what you're comfortable with, like some people aren't comfortable with therapy, but they are comfortable with functional medicine, as an example, right? Those are the baseline. And then things like price and location.
Mm.
Nobody can argue with price and location. We filter for these for everything in our lives all the time. And then things that I think are a little bit more nuanced, but are when you hear it, it's like, oh, this makes sense. For example, lived experiences. If you're a parent and you're dealing with something as related to being a parent, you're going to connect better with a
Mm.
practitioner who is a parent, right? Like this isn't same thing with if you're going through chronic illness, if you're a veteran, like those types of things, you will that human connection matters. And there are subtle ways and there's studies behind this that show when we have that connection, patient outcomes are better. And then we include optionally, the lived experience are also optional. We include religion, politics, and ethnicity as an option. It's not
Hmm.
always relevant,
That's
right?
very interesting. Yeah, I like that
But
actually.
like, yeah, for some things it matters. For a
Yeah.
massage therapist, not so much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For things that you're talking. So maybe you're not speaking too much to your massage therapist.
No, no.
But yeah.
Usually we don't. Usually we're trying to relax. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you say? So, you know, I can see perfectly clear how this works for one-off transactional type of appointments. But what about, again, like in the hormone and functional medicine space, it's a longer relationship. You hope that patient's with you for, years and years. So what would you say to somebody who is looking to make that initial connection, but really they want like a long-term connection?
Yeah. I think for all of these, and this is where I think there's a lot of beauty in having a collective, right?
Mm.
And so I try to explain this to my practitioners because, and it makes sense when I explain it, but from my video game experience, we look at people who, for example, like to collect things, right? That we call them cohorts, different groups of people. When you have some cohorts are not interested in a long-term relationship, but if you come into this saying, hey, this is what I do. If you want to work with me, you need to commit to X amount of time and like both in length and in time per week, let's say, or time per day. And that means that when you put that out there, they can choose to work with you or work with someone who's just going to give them relief today. And
Hmm.
depending on where they're at, they may not be ready for you. And it's better not to waste both of your time, right? If they're not ready for you. And that's the goal of the matchmaking is to really say, hey, it's not just all of these things, but are they in a place where you can be effective in your work with them? Because if you're saying, hey, I need you to change your food, your sleep, your whatever it is, and they just can't for whatever reason,
Or don't
it's
want to for whatever
I don't
reason.
want to. It's
Yeah,
not a
sure.
good use of either of your time. So
Absolutely.
our goal is to really try to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah. It sounds like you've really thought about all the connection points. And do you guys guide and support the clinician as they're building their profile page so that they do this work the way that you intended?
Yes, so it's really hands-on. Like I have calls multiple times a month that are open office hours that anyone can drop in from a provider side. We have videos that show you, hey, this is how you set up your profile. These are all of the cool things you can do. For example, our calendar booking system has the ability to set up automated AI voice calls that confirm the appointments however long ahead of time and allow patients to reschedule. You don't have to do that, but you can, right? These types of systems will walk you through and say, hey, here are all the options. This is what you can do. Here's a video you can watch. Here's a live call you can come to, and you can email us anytime. We are really passionate about providing hands on white glove support to
Mm,
the providers because they need to feel that this is really stressful. It's hard. Nobody likes writing cover letters, and a profile page is effectively a cover letter. So, how can we make it easier for you? And often just having that conversation with someone else it's easier to get it off of your chest and on paper. And you can always improve it and change it down the line. But we often get blocked by things that, for whatever reason, are too much for us. And
mhm.
sometimes doing these things can be. So, that's
Yeah.
why we're here to be with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like what you said too. It's like we, as human beings, we want it to be perfect. Like this is representing my business. I have to have all the language exactly right. But what you're saying is iterate, get something out there, start to see some of the feedback that you're receiving. Who are you connecting with? Who are you matching with?
Yeah.
And then you can go from there. So that's from the clinician side. Now from the patient side. What have you learned about why a patient would want to do this versus just asking a friend or going to a Google directory? Like, what is the outcome for the patient?
So it's really interesting. I think the biggest thing is we don't know what we don't know. So, from a patient perspective, like I mentioned kind of at the beginning, there's often things that you discover. You're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know this modality existed. Like, for example, there's people who exist who do dance and movement therapy as a form of like helping you work through stress. That can be much more accessible for some people than therapy, right?
Absolutely.
And if you don't know it exists or you don't even know how to find the person, then how would you know that that could be something that could help you? I think hormone therapy is a great example of this. Like I was at a women's event and it's primarily women who are in their 40s and 50s. And this one woman, she does specialize in hormones. And she was like, yeah, like brain fog, it's a really serious thing for as we're going through this. And the woman we were talking through is like, I didn't know that. She's like, I didn't, but like when you live in it all the time, I think it's easy as a practitioner to be like, well, obviously it's this. But
Right.
as an average person, I think we underestimate the level of education and the level of understanding of a lot of these things. And so people come to us when they say, hey, I've tried everything and I just don't know. I don't know where to start. And for us, this is a starting point. We're
Right.
not saying it's everything. You're going to learn a lot along the way, but this gets you from a like absolutely lost, you have no control over everything, anything, to a hey, here's the roadmap of the types of things you can try. Then there's no
Okay.
pressure. These are just options, and you can see what feels right to you and go from there.
How did you develop your patient onboarding form? Because I would imagine the clinician side, and maybe this is just my marketer brain kicking in, but the clinician side seems fairly easy. You know what you do, and how do you just articulate it in a way that makes sense? But really, the magic, I believe, is going to come from the patient filling out that form and really identifying what their needs are so that the matchmaking algorithm works.
Yeah. It was a development of a few things. So, I mean, I've always been interested in health. I think I told you when we spoke before the recording is that my mom is a nurse. I've been around. I chose to take anatomy and physiology instead of other courses in both high school and university because I knew I was going to be bored with plant biology. I've been obsessed with these spaces for a long time. It just has never been in my professional life. But symptoms, as an example, are only one piece of the puzzle. And so, what I saw was through my experience and through the experience of others, and talking to a lot of providers, they were saying that, like someone comes to me and then they'll ghost me. And you're
Mm.
like, you don't know why, you don't know what's happening. It's likely because they weren't in the right place at the right time. And
Mhm.
we often won't admit to ourselves what we're going through either. So we really intentional about the wording, the language in that client onboarding. because there's no shame. We're just where
Mhm.
we're at. But even if you outline it in certain ways, people may self-identify poorly. And then I think there's a lot of things that come up. The more, for me, if we talk about the core pieces, right? The symptoms, the where you're at in your healing, and then what you're comfortable with. People tend to start on the very like conventional lens in terms of what they're comfortable with, right? And that's just because that's what we're mostly exposed to. I think the more we learn, the more we're open to different things. But if you are all of a sudden pushed to all like a tuning fork therapy, for example, and you're not interested in sound or by anything like that, that's not going to be useful, and you're going to walk away, right? It's not going to be a good form of treatment. I say that because it's such like most people have never heard of it. I think for me it's really important to consider what are all the reasons why something won't work, and then build a system around it, which is how I approach this.
You're going to gather so much data over the next several years. How do you think that data will be useful in your software to begin with? But I
Yeah.
mean, is there like an AI version of this, like where you're building from the information and then outside, is there any usefulness to that data?
So I'm actually working with someone to measure patient outcomes. So we
Okay.
have the intake and then we'll have the patient outcomes. And so for me, that's one portion of it, is to see, well, how effective is the matching to then actual results? When we talk about the intake of the information, I think there's a couple layers. I want to be able to have people have a conversation with AI instead of having to fill out a form, right? Either like voice directly or through text, but collecting data to get an understanding of what type of person you have matches with or had the most effective outcome with what type of provider doesn't exist in the world today at all. And it allows an openness for further studies, to partner with universities to get an understanding of, okay, this is the data we see, but let's actually do a proper study and
Mhm.
work on building out data in a more formal way. Because I think ultimately, no matter how much AI we have, we still want to go through those formal processes. And I think what it does is then opens up the door for eventually, and everything I'm doing right now is not covered by insurance. And it's really
Mhm.
intentional. That's a whole nother tangent. But the point is, if we can get enough studies and data, it opens up the door for more things to be covered by insurance. And we know that process takes usually
Right.
15 years before
Yeah.
from, yes,
If at all. I mean,
if at all.
let's not
So
even go into that
exactly.
that
But like, how can we
conversation.
make it more mainstream? I guess is
Yeah.
my goal. Like, how can we offer this care in a more mainstream way that's more accessible to more people?
Yeah. What's your goal? What is your end goal?
What is my end goal? My end goal is to be able to give people access to the care they need as simply as we book an Airbnb.
Gotcha.
Like as simply as that. And then for providers to spend most of their time with the people they care about and to give them a sustainable and like quality of life, like to be able to give providers the ability to take care of their patients and then do wild things like, I don't know, take time off with like, if like for me, I really want to build this out in a way that we can offer benefits and other things to our providers, not as employees, but just now we have a large enough group, we have negotiating power, right? How can we do those types of things? I have a lot of ways I want to do that, but it's really to support on both sides.
As you're talking, I'm just thinking about the startup. So at Accelerated Medical Practices, we work with hormone clinics, whether they're established already or they're just getting started. And the biggest barrier they have when they're getting started is, it's the easy part, get an office, get some staff, get an EMR, like get their forms. That part is very tangible. But marketing, finding patients without that insurance piece, no one is just calling the office. You
Yeah.
can get a practice from zero to operational rather quickly just by them participating in this program, don't you think?
Yeah. So for people to sign up, I mean, you could really do it in a day or less, right? Like it doesn't take that long, as long as you have an email address that
Yeah.
you can use, right? The goal is to get people on board, to get them moving really quickly. I think the piece that I don't think I mentioned is we are also going to be offering this as a benefit that companies can offer to their employees. So
Oh,
then the
okay.
cost is covered. So then the cost is covered by the employer. And then it's that question of like, oh, it's too expensive becomes it pivots a little bit, right? So my goal is not only to do the general marketing, but also very direct partnerships with employers, then to allow for clinics who are listed to get booked and they don't
Mm.
have to, it's a different perspective.
That's so funny. I never even asked you how you monetize this. Like I was so invested in how it works. Yeah. So who you said clinicians sign up for free, so the clinicians
Yeah.
aren't paying, which I love that. It kind of turns my stomach a little bit when you go to doc or these kinds of places and you can
Yeah.
see sponsored doctors. It's like ugh. You want it to be
Yeah.
agnostic of money. You want it to just be sharing what they're capable of. But so you're saying it's the patient that pays.
The patient that pays. So the way that we're doing this right now is it's a the patient pays whatever the fee is that the provider sets, and that's I'm really really intentional about. I don't think it's okay to set prices for providers
Hmm.
because then you can't provide the quality of care you need to. So they set that price. We take a percentage of
Gotcha.
that fee.
Okay.
I will say, because regulations are a party for everybody, that there are some states and some types of practices that we cannot charge or we cannot do split fees.
Mm-hmm.
So then we'll offer it as monthly, but it's nothing compared to what you're paying anywhere else. And
Yeah.
we are building out an EHR in parallel with the booking and payment system. So we're going to have, so the meaning it's,
Wow, that's an undertaking. Holy cow, you didn't tell me
yeah.
that part.
Yes, I'm working on it with a partner, but it's a rollout that's not going to be live right away. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, cool. So let's walk away from the actual product for a second because on this podcast we talk about business. We talk about what it takes to be an entrepreneur, what it takes to grow your business. And that's, I mean, look, this is the product and you're offering software versus clinical support, but you still are an entrepreneur. Is this your first time being an entrepreneur or have you had businesses in the past?
So this is my first time formally being an entrepreneur. People joke in the software space that product people are like mini CEOs,
Mm.
right? Because we have to manage, like, for example, I launched an app for flight attendants specifically for the passenger manifest. So, and that I managed everything from the legal negotiations to sales to defining what it looked like to working with the software development team to actually being in person at various airlines. I got to fly all over Brazil and Spain. It was like, to like work on these things in northern Canada. So I've done this in my professional life for 15 years, but not formally on my own. So of course there's
Mm.
tons of things I'm learning, but I'm very grateful that there's a lot of my experiences I can bring in.
Absolutely. How
Yeah.
about your fear level? There's a lot of risk involved in
Oh
being
my
all on
gosh.
your own. I mean, I get the entrepreneur mindset. I love that. And I think there's a lot of people, not even jobs, but people that bring an entrepreneur mindset to their position, which
Yeah.
clearly not only do you do naturally, but you were required to do. But starting your own thing it's a little on the scary side. How is that going for you?
So I actually started building this 2 years ago,
Okay.
more than that now, while working full time in corporate.
Okay.
Um, I then went full time in 2025, and yeah, it's terrifying. It is so scary, but at the same time, I have never been in a role or position or done work that feels so aligned. And so it feels so grounding. And I'm so excited every day to get up and do it. Even if I'm doing something annoying, like trying to find documentation I have to upload to like something.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
It's really, I'm not saying it's easy and it's terrifying. And I'm bootstrapping, which is a fancy way of saying this is coming from my savings because raising capital is a very complicated thing,
And it's a
especially
distraction, to be honest with you.
it's a distraction and it pulls away from what I could be doing.
Yeah,
And if
I
I
agree.
had capital, I probably would have made different choices with the solutions I'm going with that would have cost my operating expenses would have been way higher.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you think about like what is your monthly ongoing expense, if you can bring that down, your overall profitability is going to skyrocket. And like, for example, we're talking about EHR systems. I was talking with someone this morning. She's like, yeah, I get charged like hundreds of dollars a month, but like switching from to a different EHR system, this is like, I don't know. She's like, I might even just do paper. Like it's not worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is painful. And EMRs can go anywhere from $49 a month to $1,400 a month. I mean, they're very expensive and they're very hard to leave.
It's very hard to leave once
Very
you're,
hard to leave out once
yeah.
you're in it.
Yeah, it's scary, but I think it's really important to surround yourself with a support network.
Hmm.
Whatever that looks like. I host a monthly lunch in LA with female founders. And that's been a really beautiful space. There are online spaces. I think it's just really important to find other people that are also building like you because it gets very lonely
Yeah.
and it gets very scary. And so I have 3 regular calls with different friend groups. Some of them are biweekly, some of them are monthly, where we get on and we talk about like taxes obviously have been
Yep.
a big thing, right? And like, oh, what tax software are you using? Or what, like the little things that like are communal no matter what type of business. It's just important to have community.
I think that's fantastic. I wish more clinicians, like we started a mastermind several years ago, and I was surprised, being that I wasn't really in the medical world for the majority of my career, how many nurse practitioners and doctors didn't know what a mastermind was. And you
Mm.
had to really explain, that whole peer-to-peer engagement, because that's really what it is. It's great when you get tidbits of information and you get that support, but really it's about not being lonely and
Yeah.
not feeling like you're doing it all by yourself.
Yeah. Cause the problems that you're going through, someone else has solved them.
Yeah.
And you beating your head against the wall is not the easiest way to do this.
Yeah, totally. Totally. What about marketing? How are you going to reach the patients and how are you going to reach the providers?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of an unconventional, wild thing. So, I'll start from the conventional side of things. So, ad spend is the traditional way of doing things, right? And I think for a local physical presence, that can still be incredibly effective. I will say for an online presence, which is primarily what we are, you're competing with like huge companies and the dollars that they're spending like you're it's very difficult. So what I'm doing instead from a client perspective is focusing. I'm not saying that we won't do that. We are going to do that from a retargeting perspective and I'm actually very excited. I'm building with my web developer. You know how when you go shopping for like shoes or whatever, then you go back on Facebook and it had that shoe that you were looking at? We're going to do that for providers. So, and you can kind of swipe through and look at different,
Wonderful.
right? Because it's simple, but no provider does this because how they know to do retargeting ads, right? So we're going to do that, but we're also focusing on partnerships. So there's a couple different ways of doing that. And I know people do it in many iterations, but one, we're looking at affiliate partnerships. So
Hmm.
with, for example, I know someone who runs a social network that's just for women. So we're going to look at doing a partnership with her and then she can refer out. And when someone books from her, then she gets paid. Or I have a therapy group. They have 10,000 appointments a month, but they need non-therapy referrals. So they refer in and then they get paid as a way of doing it. Like I said, we're also working with different employers to kind of build
Hmm.
that out. So it's a little bit unconventional, but it's being really intentional about how we're doing it. Obviously, writing content, social media, etc. You can spend hours on social media and not get
Yeah.
anywhere. You just have to be really effective and intentional about how you do it.
Yeah. No, I call that the spider web marketing plan. So you do a little bit and it ripples out, and then they do a little bit and it ripples out. And you eventually, it takes work, it takes time, it takes patience, and it takes an understanding of the whole ecosphere of that marketing system.
Yeah.
But it definitely can get you to the same result as spending $1 million in ad spend. Yeah.
Right. I don't have $1 million. So
Yeah. Yeah. What else do you want to share with the listeners about the product?
yeah, so there's something I feel really passionate about is making care accessible. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of providers feel that way. They just have bills.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of life. So part of what we're doing as that percentage that goes towards the Saha like fee, the platform
Hmm.
fee, we're taking 2% of that and it's going
Hmm.
towards a fund. And that fund is then available for people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford services. So by
Oh,
being
that's
part of
great.
Saha, you are contributing to this ecosystem that allows others to access care, and then you'll get paid your rate, your regular rate from this fund. It's just something really important to me. I hear it all the time and I see it where people are like, oh, I can't afford X treatment, but I really need it. I know this is going to be the thing that changes everything for me. And there aren't systems in place to take care of that right now,
Yeah.
for the most part.
That's phenomenal. That's a game changer for me because, especially in the wellness space, there are a lot of practitioners that will tell me, I would do this for free. I just want people to be healthy and I want people to have the best quality of life. But they can't. Like you said, they have bills, they have staff, they have rent, they have licenses to upkeep. So the ability to do what they're doing, make money on this side of the practice, but also know that they're contributing towards supporting people who can afford their services is just a great add-on. So good for you for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's really close to my heart. And like I have a friend who we've been friends since high school. She has three kids, all special needs, and she's for the majority of her life has lived under the poverty line and
Mm.
now is in social work and giving back that way. And she's doing well now. But to me, she's a great example of someone who would have really benefited from so much help. But there's no and there the more we look at economic disparity, the more we see that this is prevailing across the board. And if people can have what they need, it lifts all of us up, right?
Absolutely.
And so, not to sound a little too Canadian, but I think it does make a difference. And we know that when people are not miserable, less things happen that are not great, like crime, for example. So how can we help?
Right. Well,
Right?
and if you're in pain, it's really hard to go and take care of your family and take care of yourself and
Yeah,
do the things you need to do to be a productive member of society. And so you can classify that pain in a variety of different ways, from chronic pain to brain fog. But
sure.
pain is pain. And if you are unable to be at your best, then you may not be able to get those rewards as well. So
Yeah, something as small as like being really irritable at home.
yeah,
That sucks. Like it sucks for everybody.
yeah,
So how can we help?
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk to you all day long. I told you when I first met you that I was your biggest fan because I was watched all your social media videos, and I just love what you're doing. I think it's needed. I think it's timely, and I love the technology behind it because it erases a lot of the doubt that a patient has about whether or not they should go try this practitioner. And there's nothing worse than going from practitioner to practitioner, paying all your copays or paying their consult fees and just not knowing if it's a good fit, and you're erasing
Yeah.
that. So it's awesome.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, so we have a tradition here on the podcast. I stole this from my favorite podcaster, Steve Bartlett from Diary of the CEO, where my last guest left a question for you. And
Mm.
so here is my question for you. If you knew you wouldn't fail, what would you do?
Oh my gosh. It's a wave of emotions. Um, what would I do if I knew I wouldn't fail? I think I would take a lot more risks. I think I would I think I would do the things that I'm scared to do now. Like I would go and like that EHR that I want to build, I would just do it instead of waiting. Yeah, I would just do the things that I know are needed, but I feel like I have to wait for financial reasons, for whatever data points. That's a great question.
Cool. All right. Well, I hope that you all the things line up so that you can do what you know you need to do. Because it doesn't sound like you're the kind of person that's going to fail anyway. So we have much faith in you. All right. Well, so let our listeners know, and I'll put all this in the show notes. But how do they find you if they have a question, and how do they sign up for Saha?
Yeah. So if you have a question, you can email us info@sahacollective.com. That's SAHA collective.com. That's also the website, SAHA collective.com, Saha Collective. You can also reach out on Instagram or LinkedIn if you want, Saha.collective on Instagram, and it's just Saha on LinkedIn. And please ask any questions. Like I said, the sign up is free, unless you have some regulatory limitations, then we'll offer it as a subscription, but it's still like negligible, like I said, compared to everything else out there. And I'm really excited to connect with you. Oh, and I do have calls with my providers. I make a point of meeting them because I think it's important. And I know this is rare and people don't do this. They're like, oh, I just signed up for a platform. I'm like, no, no, no. This is like a personal community. We have calls with our other providers. We have support networks. We have systems in place. You're not alone as a part of this. And that's a key piece of it.
Fantastic. Thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for doing this work. This is very, very needed in this space. And I'm glad that we were able to get the message out to everyone that's listening. So thanks.
Thank you, Jody. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Beyond Hormones, the business of wellness. I hope that you're walking away with fresh ideas and real strategies you can use to grow your practice with profit and purpose. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow the show so you never miss a conversation. And if something you heard today resonated with you, do me a favor, share this episode with a friend or a colleague. It's one of the best ways you can support the show, and it might be exactly what they need to hear right now. If you want even more tools and support, go ahead and head over to acceleratedmedicalpractices.com. Until next time, keep doing the work that matters. Your patients need you, and I am cheering you along every step of the way.